This Monday, September 21st, Lake County School Board Special School Board meeting to order. First, we have a moment of silence followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Mr. Mathias.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. And again, welcome. Do we have any public input in the room?
No, ma'am.
All right. Mr. Farnsworth, do we have any virtual public?
No,
Okay.
ma'am, we do not.
Excellent. So moving on to our topics, we have our first item is the Superintendent Evaluation, and it's an actionable item.
Mr. Johnson.
Yes, sir. The item came up at the last board meeting. The superintendent's contract is subject to being reevaluated on an annual basis. The board was unable to complete the evaluation for the 1920 school year, which ended June 30th, 2020. Due to the pandemics, the data, or some of the data that was necessary to complete the evaluation is unattainable or wouldn't be obtained for quite some time. In order to comply with the superintendent's contract and board policy, which requires the annual evaluation, there was a precedent established for instructional personnel for the 1920 school year to use last year's evaluation for both job performance and student achievement, which are the two areas where the past evaluation has been focused. I put in two alternatives because that's the format, but the request from the board was to indicate that accepting and ratifying the 2018-2019 superintendent evaluation as the evaluation for the 2019-2020 school year. And I placed on the board docs the 2018-2019 evaluation for your review.
Okay.
Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the 2019 board evaluation of the superintendent for this year only.
Very good. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Or any? Aye. Okay. I should have asked for discussion, but I don't think there is any. I don't see Mr. Dodd yet. Okay. Did Mr. Dodd vote?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry.
It's 5-0.
Thank you. All right. Very good. Moving on to the next topic then.
Well, we're going to jump right into our workshop agenda. I am so excited this morning to welcome Miss Andrea Stinken. She is currently the principal at Sawgrass Bay Elementary School, and soon, over the next couple of weeks, she'll be transitioning over to the new principal of our new K-8. And so she's bringing you today an update on the school's progress, including the vision for the school, the work that she's done with our community groups and others. We're going to talk about a school name today, so welcome, and we're so excited to have you. And I'm just thrilled to hear again your vision, as it's just a really excited about what's going to happen for kids.
Thank you, and thank you, Madam Chair, School Board Superintendent, for having us here today. I do have David Parker here. He was going to start out with just an update on some of the construction and then lead into the vision and mission.
Great.
That said, good morning, Madam Chair, Vice Chair, Superintendent, fellow members of the board. Just wanted to kind of briefly share with you some construction to kind of lead into where we're at and where we're going. And then Andrea was very kindly to give me a few minutes of her time, so I appreciate that. All right, so this Four Corners K-8, we'll go ahead and jump into it. Here's some brief info. It's about 160,000 square feet, 1,200 student stations, 800 elementary, 400 middle. We'll have some enhanced technology, increased security, state-of-the-art kitchen with track, outdoor court, playgrounds. This will be the first E-STEM school in Florida, possibly anywhere, but Andrea, of course, will go more into detail with that. Here's some project highlights. Project officially started April 17th. There's been approximately 6,900 cubic yards of concrete to date. That's the equivalent of 15-foot wide, 4-inch deep road, 7 miles long. About 3.7 mil have been awarded to Lake County vendors to date, with more to come. As of this morning, all exterior walls are standing with the interior structural steel and roof framing underway. And to give you, superintendent was on site last weekend, and seen some of the panels going up. Just for record, the largest one's about 100 tons, just to give you an idea of what one of them weighs. But so with that said, I'll get into some photos. This is when we started in May. A little clearing starting. We'll jump to June with more clearing done. July, you will see some footings have begun. Site's pretty well cleared. We'll get into August where all the footings are done, with part of the slabs being poured and underground utilities. We'll jump to just last week. You'll see 80% of the walls standing. As of this morning, they are all standing, gym, everything. And then we'll begin interior framing and then all the MEPs as we work forward to building out and doing finishes. And that wraps me up. And without further ado, I'll let Andrea get into what she's going to do today. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. There we go. All right. I was there just last week as well, and got to see the gym wall coming. It's an amazing sight to see, and it's really exciting that it's coming along nicely. But today I'm really here to talk to you a little bit about the vision, mission, values, and goals for the Four Corners E-STEM School. Talk about the name that was selected that we would like to move forward with, some school colors, and then some mascot options that we'd like to, once we get our social media up and going, put those out for vote for the community. And then before I dive into a little bit about the vision and mission, wanted to be able to bring this quote to you where it talks about, if a mission is to be truly shared, it must be co-created, not sold, and co-creation requires that fully engages others. So I'm not here today to give you a fully developed vision and mission for the school, because I do believe I need a team of people, community members, some key stakeholders to come together as we develop that shared vision and mission. So here's what the process is going to look like. So gathering some key stakeholders together to do some of this work, and then be able to review and discuss some core values. When you've seen the school and the idea of the school, you can see that there's definitely some values that went behind the creation and the development of the school itself. So we want to bring those out to the forefront, and then be able to, with that team, analyze and discuss some of the data. I have, over the last few months into summer and stuff, been able to work with growth planning and get a list of the students who are going to be zoned for the Four Corners K-8 school. And from that, through Performance Matters, been able to already analyze some data, look at the demographics and stuff. And I think that's going to be important when we are developing that shared vision and mission, to have those pieces already in place. And then with the team, be able to develop that mission and vision. And that goes back to developing a clear and compelling purpose. This is out of the Learning by Doing, a handbook for professional learning communities at work, which is one of the foundations that I would love this school to be built on, is working as a professional learning community, not doing PLCs, but being a true PLC where we come together and collaborate. And this is just the mission, looking at why do we exist, right? Why was this school built the way it is, and what is our fundamental purpose? What compelling future are we looking at for our students? And being collectively committed, and then of course selecting some goals that we want to be able to put forth as we establish some of our priorities. But it all goes back to looking at Lake County's vision and mission. And I think when you think about an E-STEM school, when you think about being the first K-8 public school in the district, this mission and vision lives within it, being that dynamic and progressive learning community where we're going to be looking at the E-STEM curriculum, but also that diversity and embracing that. When you look at the demographics that are going to make up our school, you'll see that it's a very diverse population and that we're there to help our students get ready for post-secondary and or career. So in front of you, you may have the first page of a strategic plan, and in the middle of that, you're going to see some core values. These are core values that when I think of coming together and creating a successful school, but also one that is sustainable and helps our students be successful, you will see those core values as we go through. I want to start with the first four. They tie together. When I talk about being a professional learning community, these tie together where we're looking at being a collaborative but positive place, having a place where teachers want to work and students love learning. Where students achieve academic excellence, where we have that high quality instruction, and that the teachers and the staff, we work together and we truly believe that we can have a positive impact through that collaboration. So that's where those four roll into looking at working as a professional learning community, talking about student work, analyzing it, looking at student learning and learning from each other and with each other so that we can provide, looking at that district instructional framework, so that we can provide that high quality instruction that will build a solid foundation. So the next one, the core value, speaks to the school itself being an E-STEM school. And that's that innovation, but not wanting to sacrifice that high quality and that solid foundation simply for innovation, but building that innovation on top of that. So when you look at the school, you can see this is just a quick snapshot of the outside where you can see the eco courtyards, you can see the eco trail, where we can bring that environmental piece in. But then going in, and as we're talking about the environment, the science, technology, engineering, and math, again, anchoring it in to those best practices. So as students are learning those environmental standards, the science, technology, engineering, that we're still looking at what are those best practices so it doesn't become a thing or an activity, but true learning taking place to help our students be successful. And some of it exists within the many collaboration areas. So that's one key factor. I'm not going to go through a lot of the different pieces of the school because I know you all have seen those. But when I think of the collaboration areas, those are not only innovative, but go back to that framework and best practices with our students, where students are able to, within their classrooms, still come together and consolidate their learning, but then across classrooms as they come together in these collaboration areas. And as you go up through the grade levels, you'll see that it becomes a little bit more sophisticated with students still feel like they're traveling from an elementary feel and they get a little more sophisticated as they go up. But then going back to our Better Learning Through Structured Teaching book, this stood out to me when I think about the purpose behind these collaboration areas for our students. And it's the teamwork, attitude, and ability to network and solve problems being identified as key pieces to employment opportunities. And that's ultimately goes back to the Lake County vision and mission that we want for all of our students. Looking at the E-STEM, when you think of I don't want it to just be the STEM room. We have a phenomenal STEM room being built where we're going to have robotics, engineering. Students are going to come together from all grade levels, have some competitions and stuff. But it's not just about the one place that the STEM curriculum is, it's looking at our science labs that are being built in the upper story for our 6th through 8th graders. It's going back to those collaboration areas and seeing how can we dig in and do some research around that E-STEM piece. And then our culinary arts. Right outside of our culinary arts room, there will be an exit into what we'd like to have as a garden, so we can look at that farm to fresh piece, which goes back to the environmental factor that we're bringing in. And then the hub. So looking at the cafeteria, a lot of cafeterias are built to where the performing arts are right off of the cafeteria because you need the stage and so on, which is still the case here. But we also have the STEM room being built right off of the cafeteria so that we can have a place to bring competitions and look at the robotics and the engineering, and that actually take place in that cafeteria as well, with some judging capabilities off the room. And so those are some pieces that we want to start out when we look at the innovation within this school. The last two that I want to look at is student safety and community engagement. And these go back to when I think about that K-8 model, when I go back to the Lake County strategic plan and we look at community engagement and governance, and when we look at school safety not just being the physical safety of our students, but thinking as a K-8, the social emotional aspect that's so important within this school. So looking at the social emotional, some things whenever I've been researching and looking up different K-8 models and the successes and what we can capitalize on is an increased sense of belonging. Students are going to be able to go from pre-K through 8th grade and really feel that they are a part of this school, a part of this campus. That smooth transition from one grade to the next, but not just one grade to the next, but from an elementary to a middle school, and seeing that smooth transition. When you look at some of Hattie's research and going back a couple years ago to our summer leadership, and you look at some of the loss of learning when students transition from one school to the next, being able to capitalize on that by students maintaining there and staying there from that K-8. Continued development of leadership skills within our students, knowing that we're going to have some younger and some older, and the leadership skills that they can develop as they work together. And then looking at our social emotional learning curriculum, our SEL curriculum, and seeing a consistent SEL curriculum across campus as students go from one grade level to the next. And then the community engagement being a key piece as well. We're going to be able to have parents that start with us and they are with us through 8th grade. So thinking about the community support and the parental involvement that we're going to have. And even with those two pieces, it does go back to that student achievement as well. Because if students feel like they belong, if they feel connected with the school, if our parents feel the same way, then that in itself is going to help us with increasing student achievement. So then I go, at the bottom of there, you will see just the goals. I hope that, I'm not going to read through these goals, but I hope when you look at these goals that you see those core values and Lake County's vision and mission living within those goals. And that's some of the front work that I would want to bring to the team as we do actually develop the shared vision and mission. But you have to have something to build on before bringing that team together. So when we, on that goal, when we look at providing that positive and proactive communication and engaging our stakeholders, I have already been able to work with a committee. I had some community members, a few parents, and a few students that came together, and we looked through some of these core values, goals. We took a virtual tour of the campus utilizing some of the board workshops that you've had, and we came up with a name. So the name that we did come together and ultimately select and like to bring before you is Lakepoint Academy. The reason behind Lakepoint Academy is because we wanted something that portrayed the environment. So we're in Lake County, we're looking at the environment, we're built around a lake, as Mr. Parker showed you earlier. The school is being built right there on Wishbone Lake, so we wanted to be able to represent that. When you look at the location of this Four Corners E-STEM school, We are in the southernmost point of Lake County. We're in the Four Corners area. They're in the red. And then when you see over here, you see that dot, and that dot is the actual location of our school. And then the other thing we took into consideration is the next K-8 school that's coming to Lake County, and wanted to stay consistent with the K-8 naming convention. So that's where the academy came, because we know that in a few years we're going to have Aurelio Cole Academy join us as the next K-8. Keep going. Okay. So the other things that we were able to talk about as a committee were the color options. So the color options, when you look at the school, these colors are intertwined within the layout of the school, within the carpets, within the tile. So we wanted to go ahead and continue with that. Plus, they already portray that environmental aspect when we look at those yellows, greens, and blues. And then the last thing we were able to discuss, and this is something that I would love to put up for vote once our social media platforms are ready and we can bring that to the community, and that is the school mascot. So some priorities for a school mascot when you think of that K-8 is that it's appropriate, right, for the youngest of students, but also we can rally around with some of our older students as well. We wanted something that was different than any other Lake County mascot. We went through all of the and we went through a lot of mascots. We started out with birds because we look at the nests and so on. But a lot of birds are already taken here in Lake County that we came up with. So we did come up with a couple extras. We want it to fit with that environmental and STEM theme. So not reaching out and doing something like the lions or bears, because we want to focus in on the environment that the school is being built around, and that it just flows with the school name. So some options, and we still would like to add some options as we go through. So if anyone has some that they think would be great, would love to hear. But the reasoning behind some of these, we thought of the blue jays. That's just another bird that we find in the area that is not already taken by a Lake County school. And then the ibis is another one. We threw around the osprey, the eagles. There's quite a few others, but a lot of those are already here. Then the tortoise came up because whenever the school was starting to be built and there were tortoises, where the school is located, and had to be relocated safely. So we thought that that was kind of cool and goes along with the environment. Whether middle school students, when we think of a track team, that's something that was also discussed. And then later on, someone did bring up the tortugas, which is actually tortoise in Spanish. We do have a high population of Hispanic students that are going to be going there, so it sounds kind of cool and still goes along with that environmental piece. And then there were also, some other options that were thrown out, but those were some of the top 4 that we would like to put out for vote. But again, whenever we do that, we'll open it up for any additional ideas and then narrow down from there. And that's all I have, but wanted to see if you had any questions.
I think it's a magnificent presentation,
Thank you.
and certainly enjoy the enthusiasm.
Thank you.
So we're looking forward to you taking the reins and welcoming your first kids.
Thank
Well
you.
done.
It's exciting.
Well done.
Mr. Dodd?
Yeah, and no doubt, I'm pretty excited too. One thing though, you might be able to remind those track kids that the tortoise did beat the hare in the end. So
Right. Slow and steady wins the race. Right.
my kindergartner reminded me of that story this week. Anyway, as I'm hearing all this, I can definitely hear the excitement in your voice, and that's very refreshing and reassuring. I think these kids are going to be in for something pretty creative and innovative. As I was thinking about that innovation and opportunity, one of the things I'm most excited about hearing about when you develop these plans and get a little closer is how you're able to create those connections with the outside natural world. That you've got this this fantastic geography that not everybody's got with the lake and the eco trail and the eco lab. I really think those are going to be some very innovative opportunities there. And one thing that I couldn't help but think as you were talking about that is perhaps it might be worthwhile to maybe reach out to some Boy Scout troops and see if there are some kids looking for some Eagle projects, because I see some potential there of adding some of that infrastructure in so the kids have some places to learn out there. that might be worthwhile. And I was happy to hear about your connection to the culinary world with the garden and create that sustainability. I couldn't help but reflect back, and I don't remember how long ago, but Mr. Carr had presented some cafeteria innovations, that there was a composting option available somewhere, or this innovative recycling program. And I remember hearing about those programs, and I don't know that we really jumped forward on any of those, but perhaps it might be worthwhile to dig some of those presentations back up and see if there's some potential there. Just as I'm thinking about the E component of this school, that's something to be pretty excited about, and to be the first of maybe many to follow in leading the way on this. A couple of other thoughts came to my mind, and I can't wait to hear what we do with lighting. Are there some eco-friendly lighting systems that we end up putting in, or capture the natural light in some way, or even the water fountains? Perhaps those are sustainable focused because maybe they've got the spout to refill water bottles and reusable, as opposed to so just thinking about little parts along the way of the culture that we can promote that E part. I think that will help us stand apart and give this school an identity. But well done.
Thank you. I was able to talk with Mr. Carr quite a bit last week whenever I went to visit, and it does look like our water fountains are going to have the refillable aspect to them. And then we've also talked a little bit about solar panels and how cool that would be if we were able to bring something like that to the school with the lighting.
Yeah. And even if it just powers one small thing, that maybe it doesn't power the whole school, right? Because that's kind of maybe getting out of our price range. But just something where kids can see a tangible example of, hey, here's what solar power can do. That'd be great to. Yeah, I think those are things worth highlighting and being proud about in terms of a culture you're creating.
Very cool. I wanted to compliment you on the sense of collaboration that you are bringing to this project. I cut my teeth in Silicon Valley at my first job, and I was at a company that started in the 80s as a complete Silicon Valley startup, and they still had that drive and that go and that can-do attitude. And I really think it came from the fact that my boss was right underneath the CEO, and if they needed to, they'd be knocking on the door and being like, what are you doing? And I think that when you you have structure, but when you help collapse it so that everyone's a part of the collaboration and everyone really does take part, I think you really do create an environment of learning. And I'm just thrilled bringing that into the school here. I think that you're going to have massive success with it. And I'm just thrilled that we're looking at soft skills, because those are all the things that I saw that we needed to bring so that our kids can get those great jobs, whether or not they're in Silicon Valley or in our valley. But I really think that your sense of collaboration, I noticed that we were selecting the SEL curriculum, which is amazing because we didn't even have SEL curriculum 4 years ago. Love the farm to fresh thing. And I did want to make sure Mr. Carr is looking at our air conditioners for as we're doing the builds, to make sure we have good filters or increased air conditioners to deal with the COVID and aerosol particles.
He's given a thumbs up, he has.
Okay. All right, great.
All right,
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good.
Did anyone else have any more comments?
So I like the Zoom meeting, so we'll have to lower that. I just wanted to say that I'm obviously the excitement is contagious. Andrea, it's such a pleasure listening to you, and knowing your background makes me really excited for all the STEM projects that you have cooking and you're thinking of as you guys are getting this up and off the ground. So I am really excited to see some of the projects that happen and come out of this school. It's really, really exciting. So, and I wanted to, I thought the progression that Mr. Parker shared about the construction and the phases that we've seen, it is really cool to see that progression. So I appreciate you giving him some time and giving us some updates on that. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, are we Superintendent, are we ready to go on to the next topic?
So I do just want to say thank you. Thank you, Mr. Parker. It was really exciting to stand there and watch those walls go up last week. And so I know a lot of visioning as well as a lot of effort has gone into this school as well as our schools to come. And so thank you for setting the bar so high in terms of the leadership as we move forward with our new schools. Mr. Johnson reminded me that we will need to, per policy, to put the name that's being recommended to the board for approval. And so we will put that on an upcoming agenda for you to approve that. It's a little bit different than what we've done in the past, simply because that policy was specific to naming a school or building after an individual. So this process is a little different, and Mr. Johnson will help us with that as we move forward in getting that item on the agenda. As the committee there has selected Lakepoint Academy as the name that they would like to recommend to the board. So.
Thank you.
Next.
All right. Okay, so we're moving on to school safety and mental health services referendum update.
So if you'll remember, a few weeks ago, Dr. Landry was here, and at a workshop, she gave us an update on how our 0.75 voter-approved tax increase is being used. She talked specifically about our mental health work, including our nurses, social workers, school psychologists, and that area that the funds are being used to address. And at that time, you were also interested in hearing about where we were with the other pieces of that, which is our PASS program and an update on our Lake Success Academy, as well as on school safety and security, which we know was another big part of what those funds are being used for. So we're going to, because we have a guest here in the room, I'm going to let school safety and security go first, if that's all right, Ms. Pearson. And I think you all have met and know Joe Mabry, who has taken over as our district school safety specialist. And Lieutenant Meisinger is here alongside him this morning to answer any questions that you might have in this area. So I'm going to turn it over to Joe.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Board Member, Superintendent. Thank you for allowing us to share. Before I begin, I would like to recognize individuals in our department, Mark Palmer, Alex Hankey, and Lieutenant Meisinger, who helped to keep the department moving through the spring of the end of last school year. We were able to secure a letter of compliance from the Office of Safe Schools with their efforts, so greatly appreciated, and I am happy to be a part of the team. So with that, I'm going to share with you some department overview, some current states of safety and security, as well as an update on the referendum funding for 2021. To start off with, the Guardian program, according to statute, the Guardians are now referred to as safe school officers. Currently, we have 54, 28 that are administrative or otherwise employed Lake County hired guardians, and that includes 6 at the charter. And then we have 2 other LCSO sworn individuals who serve in that capacity. So we have a total of 54, which is a good program. In regard to campus law enforcement, we have 25 school-based school resource deputies at this point. We have 21 school-based school resource officers, and those municipalities include Asatula, Claremont, Groveland, Howey, Leesburg, Mount Dora, and Tavares. This school year, we have transitioned 3 additional schools from deputies to officers. That's Leesburg High School, South Lake High School, and Gray Middle School. To discuss a little bit of law enforcement data and behavior threat assessment data. So you'll notice in the school year 1920, there were a total of 593 reports written. To compare that to 1819, there were 383, so an increase of 210. With that, the juvenile arrests in 1920 were 30, compared to 1819 is 23. And then the physical adult arrest went from, or in 1920 was 13 as compared to 1819, which was 7. So you may see a slight increase in reports written, but the amount of arrests that coincide with that is marginal. So it just shows more of an awareness, and we are reporting more instances to law enforcement to determine a need for students. The juvenile court records, or JCRs, 124 reports were written as compared to 1819 was 89. Willis citations, which is work in lieu of arrest, were 88 in the school year 1920. And behavior threat assessments for 1920 were 279. And this is the behavior threat assessment process that we have adopted in the state of Florida, which is the Comprehensive School Threat Assessment Guidelines from Dewey Cornell. And 279 behavior threat assessments were conducted. It doesn't necessarily mean that there were 279 threats, because there are different levels. Some of them ended up being no threat or transient threat, which was a majority. Regarding our reporting apps, so you know, Fortify Florida, that was enacted through Senate Bill 7026. There were 41 tips of suspicious activity to law enforcement in 1920. And using the Speak Out hotline, or the app is P3 Campus that coincides with that for the students, there were 100 tips for 1920, with bullying with or without violence being the most prevalent of those. And you can see that there were also others: drugs, shooting threats, suicide, and domestic abuse. And these are issues that Lieutenant Meisinger and the Sheriff's Department follows up on and acts upon if need be. Regarding infrastructure, this is more in line with Mr. Hankey and the technology side of things. But we have approximately 4,000 cameras currently covering Lake County schools. And we are continuing to improve coverage and consistency of uptime. If you notice, at any given time, we are less than 2% with downtime. So our cameras are operating effectively for a majority of the time, over 98%. So total data storage and rewrite for school year 1920 on the camera system is approximately 3 petabytes. And for those who are like me or not as tech savvy as Mr. Hankey, a petabyte is equal to 1,024 terabytes. So in perspective, it's about 3 billion megabytes. That's a lot in a nutshell.
That was enough said.
Radio system upgrades and improvements. So our bus radio system has been upgraded, and we are including the public safety tower radios, and did a full redesign with that, and continuing to add interoperability with public safety for the bus system as well as our school systems. Regarding compliance, because as you know, through the Senate Bill 7026 and 7030, we have to conduct assessments each year, and each school has to complete a Florida Safe School Assessment using the FSAT. Currently, all schools have completed at the school level that process. Our district assessment is complete, but it's pending board approval, and that will be coming at the next board meeting, where I will present information to you all in an executive session regarding our district FSAT. Comprehensive School Threat Assessment Guidelines, like I said before, is the state-adopted method for conducting threat assessments. We have 93% of our schools trained at this point, and we have additional training planned for 2021 as soon as our pandemic allows for additional training. We are going to continue to increase that. Alyssa's Law will be in effect, Senate Bill 70 will be in effect for the 21-22 school year, and that is where all teachers must have access to a Rave Panic, or to a mobile panic system. And currently our Rave Panic app suffices for that. So we have that in place already, and we have had that. And I note on here that Fusus could replace. So when we talk about some of our pending upgrades, Fusus is a system that we are in partnership with Sheriff Grinnell that allows for a real-time crime center and the integration of our current camera systems for increased communication in the event that there is a crisis. And this is something that was presented to our department and to Sheriff Grinnell about 3 weeks ago, and he agreed to enter into that and to allow Lake County schools to benefit from that. So more information will be coming about that. And again, Mr. Hankey can share some specifics about the technology piece of that, but it does allow for increased response time or reduced response time for any type of situation that may arise. We have purchased USA software to help with our behavior threat assessment process. And so this will increase the ability of the staff to make this more user-friendly. It's easier for tracking and analytics so that we can start to see trends with any type of threats that may occur. And that's something that we are looking to roll out hopefully within the second grading period of this school year. Another upgrade we're looking to do is to update the emergency response folder, which is formerly the Go Kit, which has been around for quite some time in this district. Our current system is becoming outdated, if not already being outdated. So we are looking to make it more updated, simplified, user-friendly format. And thanks to Carmen Cullen and the Ed Foundation, she spearheaded the funding for this. And also with Lake County Sheriff's Office Charities and Matthias Food Service. So I do want to publicly thank these individuals for helping to fund that, and that is a work in progress, and more information will be forthcoming. To discuss a little bit about the referendum and the outlook for 2021, you can see where we have dedicated about $223,000 to various types of software. Our Raptor Visitor Management System takes a large chunk of that, as well as our ERIP system, the Emergency Response Information Portal. That is where we house all of our our safety plans for our schools, as well as where we manage all of our drills. Mutual Link as well, USA software, which I just alluded to for behavior threat assessment, and then other miscellaneous software. The Lake County Sheriff's Office contract is $2.5 million from the referendum. That is $971,000, as well as our crossing guard court liaison. You see the expenditure there of over $87,000. And then the school resource officers are approximately $1.1 million of that referendum money. Our contract with LifeStream for 2021 is $1 million. Dedicated $53,000 to Lake Success Academy, Student Services with $48,000. The charter school share is $2.6 million, and then the tax collector commission is $386,000 on the referendum money. These individuals deserve accolades as well. Mr. Carr, Mr. Ward, Ms. Slovak, Ms. Cornell, and of course, Mr. Hankey, Mr. Palmer, Lieutenant Meisinger, and then Mimi Williams, who's our court liaison. So thank you to all of these individuals to help put this presentation together. So with that, we'll answer any questions that you might have for safety and security.
I just have one that I just was wondering about. You just flashed real quick the 2.8 million for charters.
2.5.
Is there any accountability in their funding? Like, we're presenting how we're spending ours, but do they have, I don't know, any list of how they spend it, or should they?
I think I can answer that, Chairman Burns. We gave them very explicit instructions on how they can spend it. We haven't had a chance to go back and review their expenditures to date, but they're conducting their audits now, and we've gotten that information out to them. So we will be following up to make sure that they're spending it according to the referendum. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions, board? Mrs. Luke, you are muted.
No.
Oh.
I had a quick question, and I don't think I wrote a couple of questions down, but I'm not sure that it's appropriate to ask them at this meeting. So I was going to ask if we had questions that we thought needed to possibly be in the shade, should we just send them to Mr. Mabry? Would that be an appropriate place to send them?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, that would be fine.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anyone else?
Great job. Next.
All right. Superintendent, I think we're done, right? We have board member comments next, correct?
Oh, no, we're not done.
We're not done.
We're not done yet.
Oh, there's multiple, I'm sorry, I see. Go, please continue.
So the next thing on our agenda is to get an update on Lake Success Academy and our PASS program. And so I am going to turn it over to Ms. Katie Pearson, who will take it from here.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Are you able to see the presentation and hear me? Okay, wonderful. It is a pleasure to be with you to give an update on our positive alternative to school suspension program. I also have with me Ms. Jakima Spratley, who is our administrative coordinator for the program. Last year was our first year of PASS, Positive Alternatives to School Suspension. And just to remind you with regard to the outcomes and program design that we were looking for, we really wanted to ensure that this program allowed for students to continue to engage in their academic curriculum and continue their academic momentum. We wanted to also embed some social emotional behavior supports, improve students' conflict resolution skills, so thereby they wouldn't be repeating their attendance in the PASS program. Also reduce our out-of-school suspensions by providing that in-school alternative, decrease our dropout rate and therefore increase our graduation rate, and overall improve school climate, reducing disciplinary actions. So the program was put together to meet those outcomes. And some of the things with regard to the program being in 1 year of implementation that we saw was there was a need to make sure that there was data collected so that we could see how the program was impacting our student population and our schools. So our PASS teachers utilized some data collection forms daily to collect some trends and also engage in some feedback conversations with next steps with students. So it wasn't just being a part of the PASS program, but there was some day-to-day interactions with that PASS teacher or follow-up to ensure that students were supported. Also, PASS teachers met monthly together in a PLC. This was a new role and a new program, so we wanted to provide them support. Ms. Spratley was their go-to for that monthly support and also on-site support. She created a Google Classroom so that they could share best practices and resources and build their capacity together, answer any questions within that Google Classroom space, and interact. Also, we had visits, on-site visits, and Ms. Spratley visited each of those programs to see how PASS was working, also collect some data trends and provide support to teachers in their environment. PASS programs were highlighted. We had some amazing highlights shared on different media outlets as well as News 13 for this program implementation and how it was being used in Lake County schools. PASS teachers also worked very closely with the mental health liaisons. Both of those roles being new, we wanted to make sure that they were linked together on campus as being a support for students through these programs throughout the year. They also participated together in many joint professional learning opportunities. Again, we had the three-tiered approach with regard to PASS being academic, social, emotional, and restorative practices. So within that classroom setting, again, we wanted students to keep that academic momentum. So we embedded classroom libraries, we supported with actual social emotional learning curriculum, and the use of restorative practices. For academics, the instructional framework was kept at the forefront when planning and working with our PASS teachers. And the classroom structure began and ended with daily check-ins, allowed time for students to complete their academic work and get support. And then time for social emotional lessons through LEAP, Stanford Harmony, check-in circles to practice some of those behaviors and skills that they were learning. and then opportunities to receive any additional support, whether it be from mental health, counselors, or that past teacher. Social emotional curriculum that we use comes from CASEL, which deals with ensuring students practice self-awareness, social awareness, responsibility and decision-making, self-management, emotional regulation, relationship, and social skills. So we want students to understand how to manage emotions, how to achieve positive goals, how to show empathy for others. And so those lessons are embedded into that social emotional curriculum. And then they're practiced through the use of our restorative practices and circles, where students actually have an opportunity to practice utilizing those skills, using their effective language and those restorative language frames, also to be able to discuss in a positive way their feelings around particular issues and how to make better choices upon returning to their classroom setting. So those are the three branches that supported the program. Professional development was offered monthly. Now, based on having to stop with regard to our COVID activities, we couldn't repeat all of what was offered and planned, but we did have schools have an opportunity to come in and showcase with each other best practices. So every school past teacher made a quick presentation that they could share with the other past teachers to come in and highlight what the program looked like in their school. There they were able to get some other ideas, maybe tools of the trade. We thought that was very important, being that it was a new role and it looks different across different levels. Professional capacity and literature that was provided, interventions and in-school suspension. So there were actual activities that could be utilized that align to some of the misbehaviors that might be in the past program. Also, Don't Suspend Me, which was also a tool that they could use to work and train and support ways to intervene within the classroom prior to students being suspended, to be able to give that information to other teachers and to work with their leadership teams in looking at their data. Pedagogy of confidence, which speaks to looking at students' strengths and tapping the potential in all students, and how to find that untapped potential was also a text that was part of a book study. And then causes and cures, which are getting down to the root cause of what might be causing behavior, instead of looking at the student as an individual or what they have done. It's mostly what is causing the student to respond in this way, and how do we change that behavior. Here's some pictures of our past teachers, amazing group of individuals, very much committed, working together in their PLC with Ms. Spratley and sharing some of their best practices and program successes. And here's what I think everyone's been waiting for. What's our impact? What has been our outcome? Knowing that we haven't had a chance to finish the whole school year, and it's a new program, but we do have really great outcomes that we'd like to share. So first of all, out of school suspension. Here's our comparison data. And this was really what we wanted to impact. We wanted to reduce the number of out of school suspensions by creating an in-school option. So the data is broken down by 18-19 school year compared to last year, 19-20 school year by region. And although we had an increase in the number of students from the 18-19 year to the 19-20 year, we actually reduced the number of students that were suspended out of school. So it went from a total of 8% in Region 1 to 4%, 10% in Region 2 to 6%, in Region 3, 6% to 4%. And ultimately in 18-19, we had approximately 3,000 students that were suspended out of school. That number dropped to 1,800 students suspended out of school, which is what we would like to see with regard to that past program, because we're giving more in-school suspension options. We also track our data by subgroup. And when you look at the subgroups across the top in the orangish color, these are the subgroups that represent our district makeup. And the blue line there right under it that says district, that is the percentage of each of those subgroups in our district. So for instance, ESE makes 18% of our student population, ELL is 4%. Males make up 51%, while females 49%, and so on and so forth. Then we look at 18-19 versus 19-20. So out of the students that were suspended out of school, what was the percentage within each subgroup? We want those percentages to be proportionate to that blue line above. so that we don't have disproportionality with regard to any subgroup. So the subgroups that are highlighted with the yellow shows that it is disproportionate with regard to the number of students that we have in the district and the number of students that are receiving that out-of-school suspension. So these are some areas that we would like to focus on to ensure that we are not being disproportionate with applying those outcomes, or what in our systems can we tweak to support the needs of these students in these programs or subgroups better. When we look at our in-school suspension comparison data, we see that even though we had an increase in number from 1819 to 1920, we have an increase in students that are in school suspension, which is what we did want to see. We want to see the students that would have been out of school suspended have an opportunity to participate in the PASS program. So overall, we had approximately 2,000 students in school suspension in the prior year, and last year about 3,000. So that was up 3%. But along with that, we look at the disproportionality, and we see that same disproportionality with regard to our in-school suspension population, where we have a larger percentage of ESE, larger percentage of male students, larger percentage of Black students is disproportionate there as well. So that also becomes a next step, because we see that also taking place in our in-school suspension option and program as well. Even though we had around 3,000 students served with regard to the PASS student in being placed specifically in ISS, when PASS teachers review their data and kept track of how they're supporting students, following up, or students that may have been assigned to a PASS teacher maybe for a period or to give additional support, roughly 5,571 students were served in lieu of just the 3,000 that received PASS as a consequence. So our PASS teachers, it shows, are going into classrooms, providing that follow-up and support. At the top left, you see the makeup of the students that were served, primarily general ed. And then those that were served that were previously in the ISS or PASS program, about 52% first time. There was 20% that were a second time and returned to the PASS program, 10% a third time, and about 15% 3 or more times, or received additional follow-up from that PASS teacher. Students are also asked if they would like to have some additional support or counseling, and they can say yes or no, or decline to answer the question. They're also referred if the PASS teacher sees a need, maybe identifies that there should be some follow-up from the counselor or mental health support. And so we track that data as well. And then finally, overall program strengths, we see the use of restorative circles, we see restorative questioning being used, we've seen the classroom libraries and authentic literacy opportunities embedded into the PASS classroom, the use of our LEAPs, zone of regulation, CASEL, and other activities to support social emotional learning, the data chats with students to look at their academic progress and maintain academic momentum, and then push in supports for small groups, from mental health supports to the counselor, pushing in. All of those are strengths of the program. Growth edges, we like to develop some school-based reintegration systems. Sometimes we don't have the opportunity to have the teacher sit down in a meeting prior to a student returning after PASS. So we would like to have the teacher involved as much as possible, especially for issues that actually maybe impacted the classroom environment in a negative way. So we would like to also use the PASS data to support our early warning signs meetings and looking at our students that are in need of additional behavior and social emotional interventions. And our next steps deal directly with the disproportionality in our data and equity with regard to our programs. So we want to deal with that and take a closer look there. We're also looking at providing some opportunities for students to become leaders, to be trained in some of the ways to facilitate circles and provide leadership through some summer learning opportunities for student-led circles. And then finally, develop that professional development role play for those students to be able to feel confident and comfortable leading that with their teams or with their schools upon returning into their classroom, or just as an ambassador on their school sites to provide some youth supports. And I wanted to also allow Ms. Spratley to have an opportunity, if she would, since she's led the program for this year, to maybe give us any additional brief closeout information, and then we'll take questions.
Good morning, Madam Chair, board members, superintendent. I just want to take the time. I don't have a lot to share. I just want to say thank you to Ms. Pearson and the board for putting this, allowing this position to be in place. I want to thank you for the opportunity to support and lead this PASS program. Also want to thank the PASS teachers as well as the administrators for picking a great group of teachers to work with students. That's important. And also would like to just say, reiterate what Ms. Pearson said. I definitely would like to continue the work with providing professional development for the teachers as much as possible to build that collective teacher efficacy. Also would like to really look at the disproportionality and work on some book studies and looking at the equity with teachers as well as students. And then I'm very excited about the youth summer. Hopefully we get to have it. But the youth summer restorative practice where our students are actually leading this work in the district and not as much as teachers are leading it. So thank you very much for the opportunity.
Any questions?
I had one. Is PASS actually at every school we have? Or is it at select schools? Oh, okay. Okay.
Every teacher. I mean, every school has a PASS teacher.
Cool.
I have a quick
Outstanding
question.
work. Outstanding.
Thank you.
Can I ask a quick question?
That's better than having
Yes.
schools.
Okay, I just want to make sure you guys can hear me. Nobody was saying, I'm like, this isn't working. Okay. So I also want to applaud you guys. So by no means am I taking away anything, because I feel like this is really good first steps looking at the data, and I see a lot of really great things. I love that you are looking at the subgroups of data. I know the district is moving forward with some learning in that regard, and I can't thank you guys enough for kind of leading that process and setting up these supports for students that we know need support for schooling. My question is more at the school level, and so I think I love the sharing also, just so you know, I think that's a brilliant idea to have them coming together and what's working at your school and sharing ideas from each other. So how are we ensuring each school is now implementing this with their mental health liaisons and accompanying their PASS teachers? And then even how are we bringing school nurses into this mix to really look at these early warning signs? And so my question, I think I'm having trouble putting like the regional folks, are they the ones monitoring the implementation of this program, or is this now Mrs. Spratley and Mrs. Pearson? Are you guys kind of, you know what I'm saying? Like, I know we're getting a broad general overview, but are we ensuring that at the school level that these things are working individually?
Yes, Dr. Landry and I work very close together along with Ms. Spratley so that we can make sure that the mental health specialists as well as the PASS teachers are collaborating on their school campus. That was one of our first goals, that we have these two new positions. They're both funded under the same area, and they're both there to support this. And so we want the PASS teacher and the mental health teacher to be the best of friends, to communicate. And so many of the tools that Ms. Spratley created were in Google Forms, and in Google Docs, so that both of those individuals would be invited to be able to share that information and work collaboratively. So we embedded the opportunity for the professional development happen monthly and every other month to bring them together so that they would be working together. So we are the ones that really are overseeing that, with Ms. Spratley specifically over PASS, while Dr. Landry is over mental health, but having the opportunity to jointly work together. Ms. Spratley and Ms. Landry, we also meet weekly. So in our directors meeting, Ms. Spratley is part of that so that we can make sure that we're aligning that. It's not a region that's really pushing that piece. It's coming from here. We also have Title IV funding that's tied to providing some of the resources and materials that go into the actual classrooms. And so Ms. Spratley is funded through Title IV to be able to do that work.
So if when you guys are looking at your data and you're drilling in, like if there's an individual school that seems to be not identifying students or having more repeat offenders, you guys are then doing that triage, let's say, at that specific school site.
Yes, Ms. Spratley's created a dashboard. You know, if you work for me, I like dashboards, right?
Yes,
And so with regard to that, she's keeping that data and tracking it monthly. And we're kind of turning which ones are red, yellow, and green, and who needs more support to go out and see what is going on with regard to how our students are performing, and also is our data coming in. So we do monitor that, and that's what her role has been, to be on site. We're also looking now, because we have two environments. So we have some virtual PASS that she's been working on now. How do we support that in a virtual environment? So we have some online tools, and we do have some support for past teachers on how to hold some virtual paths if necessary, and we find that there's a need there.
So does Lake Virtual have a past teacher? That's kind of weird. There's not really suspension. Okay.
So we will be just using Lake Live with regard to that. So we still have traditional, and we have Lake Live that we'll be supporting through PASS, but no, Lake Virtual at this time does not have a PASS teacher.
Yeah, that's kind of weird, the out-of-school suspension when you're not in school. I was just thinking, I know that the mental health liaisons and some of those conversations I've had with Lake Virtual and that need there, but it definitely wouldn't be for necessarily a PASS. Did we have much turnover with our PASS teachers from last year to this year?
I need Ms. Bradley to tell me that.
No, I don't know. We probably about, I would say 6, maybe 6.
Okay.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
and then 2 last year, 2 schools that didn't really have past teachers because of whatever circumstances.
Yes.
But so we have to factor in that in the data as well.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
I have a couple of questions, if I may, please. And
Absolutely.
I'm looking mostly kind of diving back into the data piece. Certainly, as we see with the implementation of the PASS program, we would expect to see the out-of-school suspensions drop, right? And we would expect to see the number of in-school suspensions increase because now this is an option. But one thing that I think is rather interesting is when you add the totals of out-of-school and in-school suspensions. And when you do that, in Region 1, for instance, last year, there was actually an increase in total number of suspensions. Regions 2 and Regions 3, if you extrapolate their data for 4 quarters, as if we had gone the whole school year, they would have also exceeded the total number of suspensions by like 400 or 500 kids. So this is becoming a little concerning to me, and I'm trying to understand what's happening here. Is it that we are seeing more behavior issues and that there are more offenses being committed that justify a suspension, or are we seeing that schools are now readily assigning in-school suspension to offenses that they previously wouldn't have because this is now a convenient or available option?
Yeah, looking at Mr. Mabry's presentation prior to this, he also has an increase with regard to some of the behavioral components that he's dealing with on a particular campus. So we are looking at kind of why is that occurring, right? I think that PASS has been used appropriately. And there have been some schools that haven't had a in-school suspension option in the past and then have used that, which has increased some of the numbers of suspensions because they had no option. We've also asked them to track the data a little bit better because we have a past teacher that's now tracking it specifically. So I think some of the data increase is because we have someone tied to it and tracking it and using the past teacher as an option. I haven't seen a misuse, so to speak, because we have embedded a lot of support in there with regard to what should happen in the PASS setting. I too would like to know, which I think we need to look at a little bit deeper, why we do see an increase with certain behaviors now within the school environment that trigger some out-of-school suspension and higher tiers of support within our student code of conduct.
Okay, and I had also kind of made a note to myself, noting the connection that you just also observed from Mr. Mabry's presentation, that where we see the number of arrests going up, we see the number of reports going up. This gives me, I guess, a great level of concern for what's happening behavior-wise with our students. If for whatever reason we are seeing significant increases in offenses being committed, that's a distraction for them who are trying to who were trying to educate, as well as the others in the classroom. It's certainly a hindrance to education for so many folks, and also, you know, sacrifices the potential safety and security of those students. So I guess I'm interested in some more in-depth conversation on what that piece looks like with the increases in offenses. And then the other piece, and I think so many folks have observed this, the disproportionality with the subgroups. For me, I guess it goes back to a fundamental question. Is I'd be interested in knowing, once again, in terms of what is driving that. Is it because the offenses are being committed disproportionately, or are we assigning consequences disproportionately? And I guess that's those are two different scenarios in how you address the situation. But that's the question on my mind.
Who's is that you and Miss Spratley, or is that like whose job is that? Is that you guys or Sabrina Dillon Banks?
It's all of us, and they're all on our academic services intervention team. And so we have been looking at data with regard to equity, because as we look at disproportionalities, that's what we're asking. The question that Mr. Dodd just asked, is it that we're assigning more, or is it that our system structure is not supporting the needs of certain groups of students more, or is it more around how we have maybe assigned or structured certain procedures and things. So we are looking at that as our team on academic services. And we've begun that work with our equity work with Dr. Muhammad and our summer leadership in digging a little bit deeper. In representing data, we didn't always use the subgroup data to look at our out of school and in school suspensions. And that is something that we're keeping on the forefront so that we can continue to close those gaps and see within our system where we need additional supports.
Very good.
I was just curious in regards to, and I know Mr. Dodd's question about the number going up, because we do have the resource, would we expect some of an increase? Because we have somebody in there to help manage, and like we are able to maybe service more students. And I also can't help but wonder, I know we've had this conversation at the board table before about the discipline incidents and possibly not being reported because of a negative impact on the school's perception or evaluation. Do you remember? I'm sure Mr. Dodd remembers, because this has been an ongoing conversation probably from when we started 6 years ago. But now are we less inclined to hold those numbers back, and it's because we can begin to support these students?
It could be some of that. You know, in some schools that haven't had passed, the typical protocol would be I send a student to another teacher's class for a little while.
Right.
Right. And that may not be reported on any particular document. I didn't sign in school or out of school suspension. I just gave them a brief timeout. Now you have a past teacher, you have some other supports on campus that we haven't had in the past. So I can actually assign a student to get that particular support, which would be a little bit different, could cause an increase in numbers. Overall, our numbers are still relatively low. If you look at 43,000 or 44,000 students, you know, that is still a low number of students that we're working with regard to discipline. So we do have the supports there. We're grateful that we have those supports. It was the first year of the program. We didn't get to end, you know, all the way through.
Right.
And so we're looking at better perfecting that program and continue to go deeper with our data.
Well, and that's a big deal too. Just access to this conversation is really exciting. Just to be able to ask these questions, I don't think we could have narrowed them down to this point. Like, why are we seeing these trends, you know, increasing, or why are we seeing the amount of either arrest or in school, out of school suspension? So I appreciate the access to the data, and I know that this year will allow us to kind of look a little deeper into those things. So I was just curious, because I know we've talked about that a lot, I feel like, at the board table. And so I don't know if that's a result, but I love that we can talk about it now. So thank you.
Yeah, I agree. I'm okay with, like, because I feel like we started when I started about 4 years ago, I was hearing a lot from teachers about lack of discipline in the schools. So if our numbers have gone up a little bit with in-school suspension, it might be that those teachers are actually feeling more support, and we do need to move some kids into in-school suspension for a little bit so that we can have more education and calm in the classroom. And so that makes, like, if the numbers go up for reasonable reasons, I think that's great. So it's just most important to as we are having the conversation. I just want to thank you guys and encourage you to, like, I'm super excited on the path you two are on, like, creating these youth restorative circles. Like, love the concept. I'm really excited about you guys have brought something really cool to the district, I feel like, and you've really crafted this new way of handling children, like, so that we can really attack what's going on with them. And I'm just really excited that we can help them as opposed to just punishing them. So it's a great path that you guys are on, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
So, does the board have any other comments or questions?
I just have one question. academically, where are we with those students? Because they're supposed to be able to stay up with their grade. Are they handling that okay?
Yes, when they come in, they have an academic contract that they sign and they go over that they need to maintain their academic momentum. They have total access because they're in there. They have their books, they have their resources, they have access to everything that they need. The teacher has access because there's a past teacher kind of checking on them to say, hey, I need their work, I need these things, and make sure that they have them. So that has been a continued support. And we've seen students that are being able to go back into their classroom and they haven't lost the beat because they've had that support there, not just sent out with, well, mom has to go to work, dad has to go to work, I'm not sure if you're going to get it done. Past teachers staying on them to help them get it done. So we have seen the academic momentum increase and students going back to their classroom with not a repeated offense because now I'm not behind and put out because I had a behavior issue.
Thank you. That sounds great.
Next.
Thank you.
And I know the last thing on our agenda is to hear from Dr. Byfield about Lake Success Academy. And I did just want to mention to you that the reason why Lieutenant Meisinger was here, she's now left because we moved on from the school safety part, was to talk about the increase in those numbers, because I did anticipate that there would be some questions about why we have more threat assessments and more students that cases that have been reported over previous years. And as Ms. Pearson was saying, is we have a lot more support services than we've ever had before. And so there's a lot more identification of students that are struggling, whereas in the past that might not have been the case. And so I think it's that the numbers to me are certainly not alarming in the fact that we're identifying more students, we're providing more immediate services for kids and for families. And she was going to talk a little bit about that, and I know she'll come back at a later time to readdress that, and how our school safety partners have really been so proactive in this work over the past year. As Ms. Pearson was saying, even with our out-of-school numbers declining and in-school suspensions numbers going up, it is because we're able to identify more students, we're able to provide more immediate support services. And so all of that, while the numbers have gone up, and certainly we'll be looking to reduce those in the future, I do think that it's not necessarily a bad thing that we're seeing that, because I do think, as Dr. Burns was mentioning, what's happened in our classrooms is that we do have an alternative, rather than sending kids home, that teachers are able to remove a student who's being disruptive in a classroom. And so I do think that just having that as an option has certainly been better for all of our kids and for our teachers as well. So the last thing on our agenda is to hear about Lake Success Academy. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Byfield. I want to thank Ms. Spratley and Ms. Pearson for all your work on our past program and for all that you are doing.
Good morning, Superintendent, board members, Madam Chair. I hope everybody is doing well this morning. I am very excited to bring you an update on Lake Success Academy. Last year when we met for Lake Success, we talked about Lake Success being a short-term alternative placement for students in grades 6 through 12 with a focus on their academics, their social emotional, their behavior and mental health well-being. And so when we talked about that last year, we focused on putting it on these 4 frameworks. 1, academics, where we focus on the core academics, math, ELA, science, through face-to-face instruction using Lake Virtual, Florida Virtual, and also providing the direct instructions here. Then we also focus on their social emotional skills. We put a social emotional curriculum in place. We use a behavioral level system as well as restorative practices. We also focus on mental health and counseling here, making sure that we are providing either group or individual counseling. And we also develop service plans which are used to monitor and manage the progress of our students in these 4 areas. Now, in order for us to accomplish this, we certainly had to have a vision. And of course, this vision here at Lake Success is really to prepare our students to become socially responsible citizens who can succeed in post-secondary as well as in the workplace. So in an effort to realize that vision, each day we come in and we work towards assisting our students to reach their highest potential by supporting them academically and behaviorally and in their social emotional development. So with this vision and with this mission, we all had to collectively agree on doing some things on a daily basis. One, we agree that we're going to hold our students to high academic and behavioral standards. We believe that, and we committed to collaborating with each other so that we can promote student success and parent involvement. And of course, we also committed to communicating with one another in terms of meeting their academic needs. Now, this is my favorite commitment, which is honoring the whole child and treating them with the respect and care that they need to develop at Lake Success Academy. Certainly, when Lake Success started here in Howey, it wasn't how can I say this? It wasn't the easiest task. And like any other school, a school has to become a part of a community. And Lake Success has made strides in that Lake Success Academy was able to have bi-monthly meetings with community members. We were able to do coffee in communities. We had guest readers. We've even had donations from the Howey Library. And in many cases, we have others from the community just reaching out to us, wanting to participate and becoming involved. So I feel proud this morning to say to you that Lake Success Academy is now becoming a part of the Howey in the Hills community. So far, as of last year, then I'm talking about last year, we've serviced 68 students here at Lake Success Academy. 54 of them were high school students, 12 middle school students. 2 of the students that we serve required a more therapeutic setting. And as of today, we have had no students that we've served last year returning for additional services. So I am very proud of that. Going back to the academic piece of our framework, if you notice there's a pie chart at the top of this slide, that's the result from our school student climate survey. You'll see this throughout the slide, or 2 of the slides, and I'll refer to them as we get there. But so far, last year we have recovered 91 credits, either recovering or earning credits at Lake Success Academy. So when we talk about the academic piece, we are in fact keeping students in school and watching them make strides towards their academic dreams as well as their behavioral dreams, and getting them back to their schools in either the better position than they came to us or ahead, but never worse. We also have the social emotional piece where we do have teacher-led social emotional learning going on. We do offer yoga on Fridays. The yoga is really structured to help students learn to breathe, learning relaxation techniques, and learning to de-stress. We also have the behavioral level system, which provides a predictable structure for our students to behave, and they know what the expectations of discipline is because they know exactly what they're working on when it comes to their behaviors. Then, of course, we have the mental health piece. We do offer small group counseling each Thursday, as well as individual counseling with our mental health liaison. Our group counseling is called Learning to Breathe. With Learning to Breathe, students focus on building self-esteem, managing stress and anxiety, strengthen their social skill, anger management, work on why it's important to increase their grades, as well as improving their attendance when they're here, as well as when they go back to their zone school. Again, this is 2 of the graphs that I referred to earlier. We are working towards becoming a full restorative practices school. I am very proud of this because we use this to build a culture of respect and responsibility. Each day is started with a check-in circle and it ends with a checkout circle. What these circles do, it emphasize the importance of building trust in relationship, which is central to building a community. By us doing that, we are able to reach our student at a different level so that we can meet both their social, emotional, and mental health need. So how do we know if restorative practices is working at Lake Success Academy? Well, again, we asked these questions on the survey. Simple. Do you like your school? And our students, 91% of our students strongly agree that they do like their school. We asked them about teacher respect, and 84% indicated that they feel respected or treated with respect by the teacher, which stays true to one of our commitments. Going back to restorative practices, you heard me talk about check-in and check-out circle. In our check-in circle, it's really just a great way to start our day. It invites our students to share their feelings and listen to others. It really helps us to cultivate a sense of belonging and community towards our school. And it really trains our students to behave well and learn to respect and appreciate others' perspective. Now, in our circle, it is not just the students who are in our circles each day. It's faculty and staff. That includes our custodian, our bookkeeper, our secretary, our teacher's assistants. Everybody participate in circle. And the adults in the circle, we're not there as the authority figures, but we are there as the facilitators and to participate and to listen. It gives our students a chance to get to know us and realize that we are real persons just like they are. Of course, at Lake Success Academy, Restorative Practices also promotes a positive school culture. It really enhances a pro-social relationship within our school community, and it includes interventions when harm has occurred. And you know, with restorative practices, when you're building that relationship, when harm has occurred, it becomes easier to repair that harm because of that trusting bond and relationship that is formed. And we ask our students, do you know an adult at our school that you can talk to? They feel trusted, and 81% overwhelmingly says they strongly agree that there's someone there that they can talk to. And we asked them, does our school set clear rules for behavior and expectations? And 87% strongly agree that we set clear rules and expectations for behaviors. And that's because of the implementation, of course, certainly of restorative practices. Not only did we have a survey from our students, but we also frequently get feedback from parents. And one of the things that they do is typically they'll write letters and share things with us. And one of the things that parents said is that we are so thankful of our orientation process because we have a really comprehensive process. You've made us feel at home. You gave us the utmost confidence in the systems that we have developed. And they also believe that the program at Lake Success Academy deserves some recognition for showing our good gifts and talents and just the time that we invest in our children. And then, of course, one parent just wanted to just thank us for our kindness and help. And one student even went on to say, I like the small setting and the individual time that my son gets to have at the school. And one parent even wrote that our program has had a positive impact on her son's life, and it was a great experience for them. And that makes us feel good because typically when a child is coming in to an alternative school, because the schools that are coming from have exhausted all options, they are not always the most enthusiastic to be in this setting, but we help them to adjust and make it a positive experience for them because we want to make a difference so that when they go back to their setting, that they can become successful. So we take a look at the year, and of course, we reflect on what we're doing well. And one of the things that we think that we're doing well is just having that small learning community, the individualized instruction. I have a team of committed staff. Everybody here, I have to tell you, board members and superintendent, they're so committed to the work that we do here. And it's important, you heard me mention that we've either recovered or earned 91 credits. Well, because the students are maintaining academic momentum. And I also talked about, our students being able to get support with their behaviors, and we haven't had any return thus far because we're truly working on modifying those behaviors and giving them the skills that they need to be successful in the school. And of course, there's always areas for growth. And one of the areas that we see based on the number of students coming in is a need for substance abuse education. And then also looking at a more structured approach to tracking our students once they return to their zone schools. So looking ahead, we're in the 2021 school year. We are looking we've added a couple of programs. One is called Coping Cats. Coping Cats is really essential now, especially coming out of the time that we're in, being home for 5 months and just dealing with a number of things in our environment is really about managing anxiety and helping our students manage anxiety in the world that they live in now. And then also the substance abuse education, where we brought that in this year, where we're targeting specific students who may have issues with that at their previous school. At the time when this presentation was created, we were scheduled to have 15 students, but of course the pandemic happened, and of course that didn't happen to be 15 students. We started off with 10 students this year, which is 2 more than we did last year, and last year we serviced 68. So you know we're in October now, and I'm starting to get the phone calls as we are speaking, so I know within the next few weeks those students will be coming in to our school. So I thank you for the opportunity to be able to share this with you in regards to Lake Success. It is an important and essential program here in Lake County. I believe that, you know, we are doing things to help our students to be able to become socially responsible citizens, and really, you know, it's such a great option for them. If you're expelled, to not be at home, you get to be in school and you still have that chance to continue to learn and work on the skills that you need and still be able to graduate and get across that finish line with that diploma. So I thank you for your time this morning. I am open for questions.
I don't know if Mr. Dodd has questions.
Why not? Why not? I'll kick it off. And I just want to say, you know, when I visited your school last year, I was one of the most refreshing experiences I have ever experienced in terms of work for students. That the environment there was just, it's really hard to describe what you have created and do it justice. But as I spoke with some students there, I could tell that there was a sense of energy, and that these students had such incredibly positive attitudes, which is, I guess, not what you normally expect from a student who's been expelled, but it tells me that you've put a lot of supports in place to do that. And some of these kids, they've turned into model students and leaders among their peers. So I can't help but think about what that looks like when they transition back to their schools, where when they go back to the school, they're not necessarily the leader anymore. They're not, you know, how do they maintain that momentum and be a positive role model that others are looking at? So what does that support piece look like when they get back to their zone school?
Well, Mr. Dodd, it's a great question, because one of the things that we talk about when we do that transition meeting with their zone school team, because it's a team, it's our team and the team at their school with the essential piece. We talk about the skills that they've learned here and just how those skills can be used to help enhance some of the things they're doing at the school. One of the things that we often suggest to those zone schools is using our students when they come back in the work for restorative practices, because they know how to do it. They know the benefits of it, and they can help to lead the student aspect of that work in their zone school. So that's one of the things that we talked about. And if you remember at the very end of the slide, when I talk about areas for growth, that is just one of the areas too that we can continue to grow on in terms of following up and checking up on our students to making sure that that continues to happen.
All right, and then the other piece I've got an interest on are the at-home learners. Now, as we're in the midst of this pandemic, we know not everybody has reported back to school. You have some students who are learning virtually at home?
Yes, I have 2 students who are learning virtually at home. So because we don't have the resources like other schools where they have a whole section of Lake Live, and we have a smaller number of teachers. Our teachers here sometimes are doing dual instruction with the student doing the Lake Live, as well as doing the instruction with the student in face-to-face. So we do get to do that with our students, and they do get to meet with our mental health liaison as well to keep some of that support going.
Yeah, I was wondering about what that climate looks like for those at-home learners, because there's some benefit there, of course, when you are there on your campus and you experience the full plethora of services that you offer. I don't know how they get the whole experience at home, but at the same time, we can't necessarily expect that everybody's going to be able to come back to school in this time. So just continuously thinking about that support at home for them, and how they not only get the academic piece, but also get the right.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We work on that consistently, trying to make sure that they do have some aspect of it. It's certainly not the same experience if you were face to face.
No further questions.
I had a question about the substance abuse treatment. Do we have people trained in that now, or do we need collaboration with like Livestream or? So
we do collaboration certainly with Livestream and our mental health liaison. So we do have a program. The program is 19 hours. So the students is substance abuse education, but not treatment. So schools can offer an education program, but not a treatment program, because treatment, you're thinking medical. Education is knowledge and benefits of not using drugs, and kind of really empowering the students and giving them the tools and skills they need to be able to manipulate through their day-to-day without the use of drugs.
That makes sense. I love that. That's fabulous. And I think it's brilliant, the idea of using these, obviously they're children that have, they're very strong-willed children. And in my experience, strong-willed children can become very good leaders. Yes. And so I think like bringing them as ambassadors for restorative practice is brilliant. I think that's a great idea. And I just love everything you're doing. So thank you so much, Dr. Byfield.
You're welcome. Thank you, Dr. Burns.
Anything else from the board? And let's see, stick me. Oh.
Nope.
Okay. All right. So I guess we are ready to move on. Thank you so much. Superintendent, did you want to add anything or?
If I can get my microphone to come on. I did want to just make a note, because it was asked. The photo that you're looking at on the screen, somebody asked why are they not in mask. I happen to know that that was taken last year, so that is not a current photo. So that's why they don't have on a mask. I just want to make note of that. I just want to thank everyone who is just doing an amazing job with this critical work. And it's been great to talk about what we're doing for kids this morning. I feel like we haven't really been able to engage in these conversations lately with what we're dealing with. And so it was very refreshing this morning. And I just want to say thank you again to everyone who's leading the work, and especially to our voters who, if it had not been for them passing that referendum, these services and all the things that are happening for our kids would not be possible. And so we're very grateful to them. I do want to take a minute this morning, since I have just a second to do so. And I want to put a name and face together and introduce to you all. This is Addison Hassel, and she's coming where you can actually see her, our friends on Zoom. Addison is our newest employee, and I can tell you we are just so excited to have her here. She has taken over everything, all things COVID, and she's going to give you a quick update this morning, and I wanted her just to take a minute to introduce herself to you all. And she has jumped in there like she's been here forever, and just it's just great to have you. And if you'd like to just sit for just a second where they can hear you on the microphone, and just welcome to Addison.
Hi, so I'm so happy to be here, and thank you for that welcome. I've had nothing but warm welcomes everywhere I've gone, and it's great to be a part of the team. So a little bit about me, because you're probably wondering. So I started out in Orange County at the Office of the Medical Director in an internship. I then worked for the Central Florida Disaster Medical Coalition for a while, and I've actually worked in Lake County for 2 years in emergency management. I'm happy to be home. And so that was with the exception of a month recently where I went down to South Florida to help with the direct COVID-19 response. I was with the state incident management team. So again, I'm very happy to be back in Lake. A little bit of an update about COVID itself. So right now, cumulatively and this is from, remember, March to now, we have had 7,241 positive residents, 52 positive non-residents. Again, that's cumulative, not necessarily current. And then the COVID school tracking. So the Department of Health is keeping a close eye, and we're communicating with them on all of the school cases that they have. They're monitoring it for an outbreak or any actionable item that we may have. They have not notified us of a situation that would require additional action or school closure, but I spoke with Victoria yesterday actually, and she's monitoring it very closely. And we are now implementing a voluntary COVID testing for symptomatic students at the schools. So very excited about this. The kits are going out today. They are being delivered, and the nurses were trained last Friday. I think that'll be a good opportunity. So that's a very brief update, but I also wanted to leave some time for questions. Does anybody have any questions that I could answer for them right now?
I do.
Okay.
My question, and I appreciate you bringing up the self-administered student voluntary COVID tests. My concern with that, I know that on the call you told the nurses that a student as young as 8 years old could self-administer. I just want to know, and I know, I just want to be sure that those tests are valid. So I've never been COVID tested, but it was my understanding that that test involved a swab going up the nose pretty good of a distance, and I have a 7-year-old. So for me to imagine him doing a self-administered coronavirus assessment voluntarily, so I'm going to make sure that everybody heard that word, that it was voluntary, that the way that the notification happened seemed reasonable, but that it's up to the parent or the student to administer the test. And are we just going to waste time if we have 8-year-olds doing these tests? I don't mean to sound negative. I appreciate that we're giving parents this option, but I just wonder, like, are we wasting kits? Are we wasting time by letting 8-year-olds self-administer a COVID test?
Sure, so, and that is an excellent question, and I appreciate your attention to detail with that. There are multiple forms of valid, trustworthy COVID test. This is one of them, but I want to make a differentiation between the COVID test that I had down in South Florida twice a week, which was very, it was uncomfortable. So that test actually goes quite a bit further back into your nasal passage, and that's the one that would probably cause the most discomfort. But the one that we're referring to is, it's a valid COVID test. It's accurate, but it's a different method. So the student will take and they'll blow their nose, and then they'll take, it's basically a Q-tip, and they will swab the inside of their nose. So basically, like, not to be crude, I apologize, but if they're comfortable picking their nose, they're probably going to be comfortable with the Q-tip. And I do apologize for the little bit of the crassness of that, but it kind of illustrates the level. You do
apologize.
It illustrates a little bit of the comfort level. Okay. So it demonstrates a little bit of the comfort level. Again, valid question, because if we were having a 7-year-old self-administer or an 8-year-old self-administer the test I had in South Florida, I too would have a little bit of concern. But no, this is a less intrusive test. The parents can also help them. If the parents want to administer this test, then they can do that as well. But it's a far less uncomfortable test than what some may have experienced in the past. Does that answer your question?
It does.
Okay.
Addison, can you tell us, is the collection with this test less accurate than the collection with the brain tickling one?
That is a good question. We asked the question of the Department of Health on these calls, how valid is this test? And they indicated that they were very comfortable with it. In fact, it's what they're using at the testing sites. So it's the same one that they use when you show up at the Claremont site. It's the same thing that you'll do there. So the validity of it is accurate.
Okay. And I can also add to hers that the University of Florida recommended this test, and they are using it in the schools in Alachua too.
Excellent.
I just want to be sure that when we're calling parents, and you did a great job, Addison, of that on Friday, of just kind of explaining or walking you through like a phone call, but that nobody, I feel like that the social media fire that could get under us offering students to self-administer a COVID test without the voluntary piece could get ugly quick.
Agreed.
And so ensuring that that everybody's following that protocol would probably be just a gentle reminder. Make sure that you say your child is experiencing symptoms. When you come and pick them up, we have the availability for a voluntary coronavirus test, which I think most will appreciate, but just to ensure that nobody is thinking that we are administering a self-test for students when they show signs of coronavirus at the school sites.
Absolutely.
And it does require a parent consent form. That form actually came to us by the Department of Health, and I believe Ms. Turner reviewed that on our end as well. So no test would be administered without the parent's permission, and that is a signed permission form.
Great.
And from what I've heard from other areas that this has been applied, that the kids would prefer this rather than sticking their finger because that draws more attention
And it hurts.
for a while.
Well, and this would follow our board policy, right? Because I distinctly remember
If you're not a
Neola
kid.
policy talking about an invasive
Plus the
procedure that we would
Band-Aid.
have to have the parental consent.
Yeah.
Will we be testing in say an elementary school? We have kids that are 6 feet away, and those kids get quarantined, so they would be offered the test. But then there's kids that are like 12 feet in the classroom and they're not quarantined. Would they be offered the test?
So we're actually offering the test, not necessarily to the people who have been quarantined. It's more, okay, I'm going to go to the nurse, and I have symptoms of the virus that are not within my normal activities. So I have allergies, for example, and I'm constantly telling people, I promise you it's not COVID, it's just allergies. And that would be a good example of where the nurse knows the student. And so they know this is rare, this is consistent with the coronavirus symptoms, and so this is meeting the criteria to test, but they're physically here. And we're actually going to send them home because of these symptoms. Would you, to the parent, would you like to test your child? So it's not going to be, hey, we need you to stay home in quarantine. Would you like to come in for a test? So much as it is, they're physically on site, they're not feeling well, and we're going to send them home. But before you go, would you like a test?
Yeah, because what I heard, it was systematic, not the systemic, not the ones that were 6 feet away they were just exposed.
Correct. And it's very important that we meet that criteria to for the testing. Again, they have to be symptomatic, and some of the people that we quarantine wouldn't. And so this is a separate process. But that is a very good clarifying question. I appreciate that.
So do we have any availability for tests for those other kids that aren't quarantined? Because I've had some requests for that kind of testing.
Let me clarify with the Department of Health, because this is a partnership with the Department of Health, and it's based on their availability of the test kits.
Okay.
I can ask what their availability is for that, and we can go from there.
Okay. Thank you. That'd be great.
Absolutely.
Any other questions, board? Doesn't look like it. Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you guys. Again, I'm happy to be here. Thank you for the opportunity.
All right, so I believe we're on board member comments. Mr. Gamble?
None at this time.
Mr. Dodd?
Sure. Well, I'll tell you that I think the superintendent stole the words out of my mouth, but I had him here on my note paper about this being so refreshing as we talk about the support for students, that it feels like it's been a long time since we've done that outside of COVID type support. And while certainly not going to downplay the importance of navigating schools in the pandemic, it is refreshing to be able to get back to what does the academic piece look like, and how do we support students in the roles that we're supposed to be doing so as educators, and to hear about all the innovations that we have going on with the East STEM School and the Lake Success Academy and past. There's so many innovative things going on here in this county, and that's a lot to be proud of, and so it's exciting to see those sorts of things. I think most commonly the questions I have been seeing, getting from constituents have had to do with Lake Virtual and the Chromebook distribution. I know, I believe I was under the impression that we have all the full-time Lake Virtual students in, but I was wondering if you might be able to provide an update if there are any other part-time students that we're still waiting on enrollment who might need maybe some elective classes or who are doing modified day, and if we have all the Chromebooks rolled out, or what the timeline looks like for the remainder of those.
So in regards to the Chromebooks, we are down to, I believe I was told, 3 schools that are not yet one-to-one. It's close to about 5,000 Chromebooks that we're still waiting on. The good thing is that we were one of the districts that jumped on it really quick, and so ours have been ordered. they got delayed because of the hurricane that came into Louisiana area. So the truck was delayed a little bit. And so I know within the next couple of days, we are expecting the remaining Chromebooks to come in. And again, that was the ones that we have left were for the remaining 3, maybe 4 schools that are yet one-to-one. So that should be soon. In regards to the Lake virtual program, as you mentioned, all of the full-time students have been enrolled. I know last week they were winding up the last of the modified day students, making sure that they had their schedules and that they were also enrolled. I don't know where we landed at the end of the week with that, but I will find out exactly how many, if any, are left still out there. We've tried to make sure that parents are aware that we do have a help desk that is working on all the technical issues. And we do have individuals manning those lines, as well as an online form that they can submit for any technical issues that they may be having. So I will get you a better update than the one I just gave you in regards to any students that might still be waiting for enrollment.
All right, thank you very much for all that information.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Luke?
I was just going to reiterate exactly what the superintendent, Mr. Dodd, said, that it was just a refreshing meeting, all of the work that's been going on for the last year. And we were able to talk about students and really drill down, and the amount of questions that we are able to now continue to drill down and look forward to, or look into, are things that I'm really looking forward to that I think will just help even more benefit our students. So I appreciated this workshop very much. Thank you.
Yes, I agree. Mr. Mathias?
I just want to welcome again Addison, because I know how hard the district's worked when we have an incident, and the late hours that our executive team, executive staff, and superintendent have spent trying to get a hold of parents and tracking. And for those parents, if you look at the numbers and the transparency is amazing. And if you look at the numbers, you'll see one child and they affect 16, or one faculty member, they affect 11. So if you don't feel good, folks, keep your kids home. Or not if you don't feel good, if your kid doesn't feel good. If you're sick, stay home. Thank you.
All right. I did want to alert the board that on Friday, the CDC finally said that COVID spreads in a majority way by aerosol. So finally, they finally put to rest the that it spreads by droplet as a majority. So like I've been sharing with you for quite some time that I thought it was aerosol, and I think we knew that a long time ago, but now that it's official, I did want to at least suggest that we look at opening, making it so that we could open 2 windows in each class. I know a lot of windows are like painted shut and stuff, but ventilation becomes very important. And I said that publicly because I know John's somewhere waiting to strangle me. I also wanted to suggest that teachers, some of the teachers I've talked to are telling me that people are giving up recess because they're afraid that the kids will catch COVID during recess. And I wanted to encourage people that the way this virus is spread is significantly less outside. So, I mean, if you want to be careful, wear masks outside, which I think they're supposed to, but please let the children go outside and play. It's the safest place for them. Outdoors is safer than indoors. So let them go outside, let them have recess, let them run around. They need that, and you need that break too. Teachers need that. They're not going to, that's not the place that they're going to catch COVID. And I wanted to ask, do we have a ticketing system for the help desk? Is that run on a ticketing? Do you know? Does anyone know?
Ticketing.
Like with help desks, with many help desks, they get like notification, and then the person gets an email, and then you get a number kind of thing, and then they have to get back with you. I'm just wondering, because when you brought up that system, I did submit it and I haven't gotten a response. So I just was wondering if they had a rolling ticketing thing with their Google form.
Yes, yes. We're being told yes.
What, this was a phone a friend moment. Thank you, Mr. Weeks. There he is.
Sorry about that. So I jumped off real quick. We do. If you look at the web page in the top right-hand corner, there's a direct link to it. So anybody who has an issue, it gives parents some information about some first steps, and then they can click on the form and submit. We've had quite a few response. Our response rate's pretty quick at this point. We've gotten past the initial blast, but it definitely is a ticketing system that we use for parents.
Okay, good. Okay, thank you. Good, so parents should be able to get through with that system. All right, that's all I have. And unless anyone else, let's be adjourned.